Hey guys, welcome to EonsOfBattle. I am Jay, and I paint a lot. Like, a lot. And that might not seem surprising because I'm a YouTuber who paints professionally all the time always, but even I was taken by surprise when I saw all of this. Yeah, it's pretty shocking. What you are looking at right now is a year of painting. This is every model I painted this year, the first year being a full-time war game miniature painter YouTuber, and it's pretty cool. I knew going into it that I was going to paint a lot, but I did not expect it to be this much. It is a triumph and it has taught me a lot about myself, how I like to paint, and what I like about this hobby. And I want to talk about all that in this video. Speaking of videos, seeing all these models laid out on the table reminds me of another video where a lot of models were laid out on the table. Hey guys, Jay here, welcome to EonsOfBattle, and today I'd like to show you every model I've ever painted. So while I set up, let me tell you a little bit about my history with 40K. This video, every model I've ever painted, I consider one of the first ever real videos we made. Before that, we were a quick tips channel with a respectable 300 and some videos to our name. This video was maybe not everything it could have been, but it was the start of scripted entertainment-focused content, and I remember it was a pain in the butt to make, but it opened the door to us going full time. We had a video that wasn't just 99% my hands painting a model. We found out that we could do it, and we knew we really had something here. It's been 15 months since that video, and I like to think that we have stepped up our video production game a lot. Believe it or not, we are no longer filming on a 10-year-old Canon camera and an iPhone. And that is not what our set looks like anymore. In that amazing, high-quality video, I showed off every model I had painted from when I started in the hobby in 2013 until that day in September 2020. And I discovered that I had painted a staggering 585 models. That was wild, and I didn't believe that number myself when I heard it. So I know you are all wondering how many models this is. All of these models were painted in 2021, and that number is, drumroll please, 439 models. That number is crazy. I had no idea it would be so much, but seeing it all laid out, it's a very weird sensation because it feels like I just finished all these models. It does not feel like a year of painting. The very first thing I did this year was this entire Necron army, and it feels like I painted it all a few months ago, not a year ago. My Star Wars Rebel army, I feel like literally I finished it yesterday. I know I started it in like June, but just yesterday it feels like I finally got all those models finished. Ah, and who could forget the dwarf? And the littler dwarf, and the littlest dwarf. I think the very first model I ever painted that did not have a weapon on it. Suppose this little beer keg is a weapon. But wow. Like, it doesn't even feel like a year went by. I guess I was so busy painting models that I didn't even notice. So I painted 439 models this year. Dare I say I painted more models than you. But the question is, was it worth it? And honestly, yes and no. Obviously, I'm in a category of wargamers all my own. I paint professionally. The reason I paint is very different, and I think it is a good idea to paint with a purpose. And what that purpose is has changed a lot for me over the course of this year. A positive at painting at such a breakneck pace is that I learned an incredible amount, and I am way more confident today than I was a year ago. And a year ago, I'd been painting for over 7 years, and even with all that experience, I feel like this was the year that I really learned how to do it and to overcome any painting challenge. A year ago, if you had asked me to paint something that wasn't a Space Marine, Necron, or Orc, I would have given you a shaky, okay, I'll give it a try. But a year later, after hundreds of different painting projects, I feel confident that I could paint anything thrown at me. Variety is super important for expanding knowledge, and I am very proud of myself. One negative of all this painting is that most of these models have not seen table time. I did the math, and of all of these miniatures, only 155 of them have been played with. And a lot of those only were 1 or 2 games. Way less than half of this horde has seen action, and this is disappointing. I really like painting, but while I am painting, I love the idea that my models will see tabletop time. Often, I am watching YouTube videos about tactics and strategies surrounding the models I am working on, and my mind is daydreaming about the sweet stories that'll happen as I push these models around the table and roll dice. But well over half just went from paint desk to the shelves. I don't have that much interest in display minis because for me, it's all about the game. and it's kind of unsatisfying that so little gaming happened. Another positive of this plethora of plastic and resin and metal is that I've created for myself more opportunities to play because I have branched out into other systems. At the beginning of this year, I had only 40k models, so 40k and Kill Team was all that was on the table. But this year, I have added Age of Sigmar, Malifaux, and Star Wars Legion to my cacophony of plastic crack. These new games are super fun and I cannot wait to play more of them, and paint more of them. Remember when I talked about how important variety was? Well, these games are what did it. Without these games, I would not have advanced so much in my painting journey, and I won't stop believing that other games can be fun and I want to add even more. I know Battletech and Infinity have been calling my name. Now that I've had a taste, I can't help but want to try more unique flavors when it comes to gaming and painting. Another downside of all this painting is that it's quickly led to my miniature collection bursting at the seams. This doesn't sound like a problem, but it is quickly becoming one for me. I have well over 1,000 models now, and as cool as it is to have all this stuff, it's too much. It's kind of overwhelming to have all this junk. I love every model, but seeing so much of it all the time makes all of the surfaces around me cluttered, and it's hard to keep organized and aware of what I have. And if I'm going to be adding a similar amount of minis to my collection every year, something has to give. Maybe that means selling models, taking on commissions, or doing more sponsorships so that I can continue to paint as much as I want to, but I am not left with piles and piles of models. We built this wall to hopefully hold all my minis, and it was full day one. This can't keep going. This year has been a very unique experience. It has been exciting, exhausting, exhilarating, and astonishing. When I first heard about this hobby, I knew that it'd be a good fit for me, and after this year, boy, does it turn out to be a really good fit for me. And you know what else is a really good fit? That's right, our Patreon. If you like the videos we make and you want more, the best way to support us is by becoming a member of our Patreon. Over there, you'll gain access to some behind the scenes, voting on what models I paint live here on YouTube, a live hobby hangout every week, some terrain STLs, and more. With that said, let's take a closer look at some of the minis that make up this bountiful batch of bits. So while I have it all out on the table, let me go through my favorite things that I have painted all year. And starting off with number 1, my Malifaux team. My Malifaux Arcanist Performers. These gals turned out really, really well. I was pretty darn scared to paint them because they are in a 32mm scale, which means that they're a little bit bigger than the wargaming models I'm used to painting, and they are very accurately proportioned. Unlike the classic Games Workshop heroic scale, where hands, faces, and props are artificially inflated to make them a little bit easier to paint and game with, these ladies are very, very accurate. Their details are very small, and so it meant I really had to step up my game to paint them all very accurately so that they would look correct. And I think I was able to do it. I'm very satisfied with how these models turned out, and it was a really, really good experience. Malifaux models are lovely, and it was really fun to step outside of my comfort zone and try something else. And when you do that, that always leads to huge improvements because you have to overcome new challenges. And so I feel like after painting all of these gals, I was able to take what I learned with them and apply it to my wargaming models, and it raised the bar for everything. Malifaux has been a game I've had my eye on for a long time, and now I'm really excited that I now can and have played it. Coming in at number 2, my Luke's Landspeeder. This is the Star Wars Legion X-34 Landspeeder expansion, and I super duper love this model. It is one of the things that drew me to Star Wars Legion because it is such a brilliant idea to use Luke's Landspeeder as the gun platform small vehicle of the Rebel Alliance. And when I got it out of the packaging, I was surprised to find that it was made of 2 different types of materials. The body is made of a hard styrene, just like a Games Workshop model, and the crew and the weapons are all PVC, but it's a really nice PVC. I really, really like painting Star Wars Legion models because similarly to a Games Workshop model, they have a little bit of a heroic scale thing going on where details and weapons are inflated to make them easier to paint. But that 32mm scale means that they're just a little bit bigger and it's a lot easier to get in there and to paint all of the little details. They're also not quite as like pocket and bandolier and just heavy duty detail level of extreme like a lot of Games Workshop models. I really, really like painting up Star Wars Legion models, and I painted this guy up in about 3 steps. Earlier this year, I painted up the body and crew of the vehicle live on stream. And then I put it on the shelf because I was waiting to base all of my Star Wars Legion models at the same time. And then I put on the amazing base that I super duper love with the Ewoks. It's just epic. And then towards the end of the year, I got the chance to work with Home Hobby and Hyperspace, which makes stencils, and that let me apply the finishing little detail, which is one of my favorite things on the model. This little spray paint rebel graffiti. It is my favorite little detail on this model, and it just makes me love it that much more. I absolutely love this model, and I cannot wait to paint up another. And rounding out my favorite painting projects this year is my Death Guard. My Death Guard started life as a bunch of miniatures from the Space Marine Heroes Series 3. I couldn't resist the fun of a blind bag, but I didn't know what I was going to do with these models. So one night I'd had a little bit of a drinky poo, and I decided to just go ahead and throw some paint on my palette and paint one of these guys up. And it turned out to be one of my favorite paint jobs ever. And it was not the drinking that made it good. If anything, the drinking just loosened me up a little bit. Drinking will not improve your painting. In fact, it will make it a little bit worse. But I found that I had painted one of my favorite models, and it's because I was working off of a limited palette. Instead of working so rigidly like I usually do, where the shoulder pads must be red and the body must be blue and the head must be yellow and the gun must be gray, I let the paint flow wherever it wanted to on the model. His right leg's a little bit orange, his left leg's a little bit blue, his backpack's a little bit green, his shoulder pads are a little bit teal. I really played around with the colors a lot, and I think the model is really nice for it. Unlike my usual style of painting, this guy is very painterly, and I am super, super satisfied with how they looked. After I finished painting all of my Space Marine Heroes models, I decided to buy a box of Plague cards to keep the party rolling, and then I got a box of Poxwalkers so that I could have all of the options for a kill team, and now it seems like it's going to snowball into an entire small Death Guard army. These guys take a long time to paint up, so it's gonna have to be a small army, but it is definitely one of the miniatures I painted this year that I am absolutely the most satisfied with. These guys are epic. I very much learned this year that it is not time or effort that makes for good models. None of the models in my top 3 lists are things that I tried really, really hard on. Sometimes trying to force something is not all that fun. It can lead to good results and is good practice, but usually the favorites are those times where you could just get into the groove, get into a flow state. Models that were fun from beginning to end, and you love them and the process, mistakes and all. Those were all the models I had a great time painting this year, and now it is time for the dishonorable mentions, the models that I just didn't like or didn't enjoy. And coming in at number 1, the Legion of the Damned Sergeant. This is an old metal Legion of the Damned Sergeant, and it just did not butter my toast. I did not have a good time working on this model. I think a lot of it has to do with the casting. I think this might be a recast. I'd be pretty unhappy if this came from Games Workshop because it has some flaws. Sometimes when you cast metal models and there's too much stress on the mold to keep it flat, you'll get it where the metal is a little bit warped and it's a little bit thinner than it should be because the mold was physically pressed in the casting process, and he feels like that has happened. His right side and his left side are a little bit ovular. They feel like they've been crushed a little bit. And another thing that happens with casting in general is sometimes if you pull a casting out of the mold, it can damage the mold by removing a little bit of the silicone of the mold. And I feel like this has happened because there's a few instances on this model where there's just gritty metal chunks that are left over from previous damage to the mold. And it's really unfortunate because the places that it happened on the model weren't really places where I could grind it away and clean it up. So I just have to deal with some weirdness to the model itself. And the model itself, I just did not have that much fun painting it. Black armor is always kind of a pain in the butt, and I didn't want to use my normal recipe that I use for Black Templar because I wanted to try something different. And so I tried edge highlighting with blue, which did work. I basically followed the classic heavy metal paint scheme, and there's some stuff I like about the model. Like I like how I was able to get the fire effects on his power axe and plasma pistol, and the model's fine. It just did not flim my flams. I didn't have a good time painting it. I have some more Metal Legion of the Damned, and I don't think I'm gonna paint him up. I just did not have much fun painting this guy. I don't love how it turned out. I thought it'd be cool to have a squad of Legion of the Damned, but I don't know. I think it also has to do with the old squatty Space Marine style body. Primaris just looks so good, and this guy, he just looks so weenie by comparison. I don't know, I just did not have a grand time working on this model, and I didn't even finish the base. I was so disheartened, I did not finish the base, but eventually I should get around to finishing it, just so that I can put it on the shelf and forget about it. Coming in at number 2 for models this year that just did not jingle my bells is this Land Raider Crusader. Now, I don't dislike my Land Raider Crusader at all. I'm pretty happy with it, but I just am very upset that it's not everything I wanted it to be. I bought this model forever ago, back when Games Workshop used to sell the extra sponsons so that you could turn any Land Raider into any other Land Raider variant, and so I have it completely magnetized up. I worked really hard to kit bash this into the perfect Black Templar Land Raider, and all of that hard work kind of fell apart when it came time to paint this thing. The step 1 of the painting process, I kind of ruined everything by using, on accident, a rattle can of satin black primer instead of matte black primer. Matte black primers usually dry really quick, but satin primers take forever to dry, and so I sprayed it and then just had to go and spend 30 or 40 hours sitting at the paint desk diligently painting a model that was really sticky. I was not having a good time. I had been staring at this model unpainted for so long, imagining how amazing it would be when it came time to paint it. And then I was rushing, and it was just not much fun. I'm okay with the outcome. There's a few things that I would go back and change or fix or spice up a little bit. I'm mostly satisfied with it, but in my memory, I just have this black hole sitting at the painting desk, kinda miserable while painting this thing. If I had used the airbrush, it probably would have been a lot smoother because I could have shaved off many hours and I would not have had the awful experience I had with primer. But the point of the video was to not use a brush, but paint a very large vehicle to prove it was possible, and it absolutely is possible. And as the piece showing off that that is possible, I am very satisfied with it. As my flagship big centerpiece model for my Black Templar Crusade, I don't know, I'm kinda unsatisfied. It's okay. Maybe if I go back and I spend a couple of hours on it, I can really bring it back up to right where I wanted it to be. But I don't have a ton of motivation after remembering exactly what went into painting this sucker. And for my last pick of models that just did not slice my bread this year, I pick my metal Lictors. These are old school metal Tyranid Lictors, and I had a great time purchasing them on eBay. I bought 4 old metal Lictors and I got a great price on them. And I was accidentally sent 1 Death Leaper, which was awesome because that meant that the sergeant of my kill team was gonna stand out from the others. And I was able to go through my Tyranid bits bin and I found a bunch of Ravener parts, so I was able to kit bash my 3 Lictors into 3 unique looking Lictors, and I was so happy with them. And did I mention that they're made of metal? These are heavy models and I felt super proud of getting them all built and made up. It took tons of work, but once they were all built and ready for painting, I really let myself down. I painted them up and they were looking really nice, and then I decided that the trick, the magic wand move in the video was going to be applying a black oil wash to add some contrast, and that ruined them. I had some really good experiences with a black oil wash with my Necrons, but a lot of that was because I used a lot less oil wash and because those are slick plastic models, and so I was able to wipe off a lot more of the oil. But on these metal models, metal has a really gritty texture in the casting, and that grit meant that tons of the oil I was unable to rub off. And so instead of just giving me a little bit of darkness in the shadows, it's like my entire paint job was 4 shades darker than I wanted it to be. And it was really disheartening. It did teach me a lot about oils. I think now what I would have done is, instead of just applying a black oil wash to the entire model, I would have mixed up a dark purple, a dark tan, and a dark red, selectively apply them to the model, and then rub them off. That would have given me what I thought I wanted. But at the time I didn't know any better, and so black oil wash, it looks pretty bad. These models look okay under perfect studio lighting, but in the real world, they look like a muddy mess. And if these models ever come back to Kill Team or I'm playing them in a game of 40K, I think I will definitely give them a repaint. They're not terrible, and that's almost worse. Like, I don't just want to strip the paint. I'm okay a little bit with what's there, but just the darkness. If there was if color is a spectrum with black on one side, white on the other, and full pigment in the middle, these guys totally exist just a little bit off of black. It's pretty bad. And I wanted nice, bright, high contrast, poppy, High Fleet Kraken Tyrannid. I did not want super, super dark, scary monsters. Pretty unhappy with how these models turned out, especially since it was such a slog to get them built. But alas, I did not have much fun with these guys. These are the models I painted this year that I just did not have fun with. I don't hate any of these models, but they just did not leave me feeling satisfied. These are models that I would go back and change or fix, but I'm feeling a little unmotivated because of how they came out. The Land Raider hurt the most. There is no stripping that guy. I think I can fix it up just fine, but I don't really feel like sinking more time into it. I painted 439 models and had some pretty strict time constraints, so not everything can be perfect. And it was much tougher to come up with 3 models I didn't like compared to how easy it was to come up with 3 that I loved. Just look at all of this stuff. 439 miniatures. I did the math, and that means that I painted 1.2 miniatures a day for the entire year. I made a pretty good dent in my pile of shame, maybe not as big a one as I should have. I did buy a whole bunch of new stuff, but I really enjoyed it, and I am looking forward to next year. This might look like madness, but it is really important to the life of this channel. In the past, the channel has taken breaks, and one of the big reasons we stopped making videos the first and second time was that I only had a little free time to make the videos, and no time to be watching videos, reading blogs, looking at Instagram, trying things out, and most importantly, painting my own models and doing my own experiments. Without having time to just spend trying things out, I ended up in a bottleneck of, well, it's time to make the video, but I have nothing to make a video about. Now I do almost nothing else but paint models, and that has led to an explosion in my own abilities and understanding on how to paint. So painting this much was what allowed me to make so many videos, and I look forward to making many, many more. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below how many miniatures did you finish this year, and no shame. Whether it's 1 miniature or 1,000 miniatures, whatever the number is, that is the correct number of models for you. This is a hobby and there are no rules. Someone who paints golden demon level armies is just as much a wargamer as somebody who pushes around gray unpainted plastic. And speaking of painted models, it is time for the real star of the show, this week's EOB Complete submissions. We put out a challenge to our community to send us before and after photos of their recently finished models to be immortalized in our videos. If you want to join in the fun, you can submit a before and after photo of your painted mini to our Discord server, which you can find in the description below, or you can post it to Instagram with the hashtag EOBComplete. Without further ado, let's look at and get inspired by what the folks have finished this week. A Cruel Boy's Hobgrot by C. Zesiu, a Battletech Bot by Daffy DD, a Seraphon Carnosaur by Dr. Wilco, a Reaper Mini Jewels and Crossbones by Painterly Git, an Old Right Knight by Alex Raider 123, a Chaos Raider Possessed by Local Tech Priest, a Space Wolves Dreadnought by Old Feline, a Whole Battletech Army by Caveman 73, an Astria Super Heavy Tank by Bob Derbaum, a Black Templar's Emperor's Champion by Glorious Corn, a Primaris Assault Intercessor by Lucas, a Skaven Rat Ogre by War Machine, a Typhus Lord of Corruption by HTL Bobalicious, a Monster by Geriatric Panic, a Kit-Bashed Imperial Guard Tank by Terraforming Studios, an Orc Shaman by Brawlski, a Sister of Battle Predator Tank by Luna's Disciple, some Stormcast Eternal Praetors by Visk, a High Elf by Swarok, a Seraphon Star Priest by Tonic Chipmunk, an Old School Orc by Grey, some Sisters of Battle Paragon Warsuits by Bluevin Cheese, a Tiny Demigorgon by Monkey the Lobotomized Simon, some Tempestus Scions by Squid Cultist 002, and a Salamander's Eradicator Space Marine by Black Lung Raider. Congratulations to everyone for a job well done. It's no small feat to get paint on minis, and you all should feel really proud. Nothing gets the hobby juices flowing like finishing a project, and we all thank you for sharing your work, motivating us and the hobby community to paint our plastic. Thanks for sharing.